Back on Inside Tennessee, we appreciate you joining us this morning. We're talking about the special session set to start tomorrow in Nashville. Susan?
Yeah, I've got a lot of questions, but one of the things that I hear people talking about all the time, locally and statewide, is that we closed down all of our mental health facilities a long time ago, and we don't have them. And so a lot of the mental health patients are on the streets, they're in our county jails. Has there been any discussion at all, either last session or do you think there will be in this session, about recreating the lake shores and the facilities that we had across the state were mentally ill, and we had some for the criminally mentally ill as well? Has there been discussion about that?
Well, we didn't close in the other sections of the state. Lakeshore was the first one that we closed, and since then I've worked real closely with the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse to get money for our behavioral health urgent care, and then the new center they're getting ready to open up at the old St. Mary's that Helen Ross McNabb is getting ready to open. So the other thing that I've done every year is I've made sure how many more people are receiving services that weren't receiving it because they were tied up in the brick and mortar at Lakeshore, because it was really expensive to operate. I know there's a lot of discussions. We met with the County Commission, City Council a couple of weeks ago, and I continue to have the conversation with our mental health professionals and with Commissioner Williams, and we'll continue to see. I think where our gap is not long-term, year-long, permanent residency. Like there was about half the people at Lakeshore was permanent residency, and they actually closed it announced they were closing it 4 days after I was elected. So I followed it really closely, and we've got a lot of beds for short-term care. In fact, we don't have enough frontline staff to be able to fill all those beds. So there's about 200 empty beds we can't staff. So it's not a lack of beds, but where it's that middle, that 1 month to 6 month type thing that can really help somebody get on the right path. And I think that's where the conversation needs. I don't think we need another 1,000-person facility, but I'm going to continue to have conversations with Commissioner Williams and the folks there, and I know Senator Briggs will help me on that.
Okay.
Oh my, well, I'll get started. And I'm going to start with you, Dr. Briggs, as a medical professional. Am I correct in still that the CDC is prohibited from doing any studies that relate to gun violence as a health care problem in the United States?
I don't know what the federal law says about that, but I've heard the same thing. I don't know if it's true.
If we can posit that it is, because I actually have looked at that. We hear all the time that mental health, and I will agree with you that there is a percentage of mass shootings that occur by people that are mentally ill. But what about that likely far greater percentage? Those people aren't mentally ill, they're just bad, they're evil. What are we going to do about that? Because out of these 18, I see very little that affect the number of guns and the ease at which an individual who is bad, who is evil, not necessarily mentally ill, can get one. What are we going to do about that?
The problem that we have, first of all, we have to understand that gun ownership is a right. It's not a privilege.
But it can be regulated.
But it can be regulated, and with rights go responsibilities and accountability. And exactly what you said is true. We have to figure out how to keep guns out of the hands of people that shouldn't have them without infringing on the rights of people who are not a threat to the public and to society.
Let me just make a suggestion and ask you, and since I'm picking on you for the moment, Becky, I'll get to you in a moment.
Oh, I'm sure.
But she's enjoying this.
So let's just take an example of the ease at which an individual can buy a gun from another citizen in a parking lot of a gun show. There are states that require that if you're going to buy a gun, even from your neighbor, from a family member, that you have to go to a federal licensed firearm dealer and have that person do the background check, transfer it, and get it to that person. That seems to me to be a pretty reasonable regulation to at least cut down on the number of parking lot guns, let's call them that, ghost guns. Becky, we mentioned that off air, but to at least do something to keep those ease guns from getting into the wrong hands. Would you agree with something like that?
Well, let me just tell you a little story. Right now, it is illegal in Tennessee for me to go on a walk all by myself in the woods with a .22 rifle, unless I've taken a gun safety course, we call it a hunting safety course, and I have a license to hunt. I can take a gun through downtown Knoxville, downtown Nashville,
Walk
and
through
walk
the mall.
around
That's right.
with no gun safety course and without a permit.
Well, because there's a presumption you're hunting when you're in the woods with a long rifle.
But doesn't it seem a little odd to you where you can't walk by yourself in the woods, but yet you can walk with a much bigger
It does.
weapon?
How about we regulate that? That's a pretty easy answer for me, Richard.
Well, I'll tell you, my record is that I've supported gun rights all my life. I've been a member of the NRA longer than some of the members have been alive in our state legislature. But I do believe that we got to keep the guns out of the hands of bad people, and my votes have reflected the fact that I'll defend all constitutional rights, the right for people to have guns, that should have guns, because I think they can have guns safely, but we have to keep the guns out of the hands of the bad people that can harm the public.
I will add to your question, though. There are two things on there that can help with some of the wrong people getting guns. You know, Memphis is having a huge rash of smash and run, you know, where they're getting it out of cars and things. So there's a part that does, one, the
Gun security.
the DNA. Now, this is the DNA. Right now, 18 states does DNA, takes the DNA fingerprint on all felons. Tennessee right now just takes it on the violent felons. They have shown that that is a very big deterrent because it helps solve cold cases. And it's no different than taking their fingerprints and different things, but it is more reliable in getting some of those cold cases. And I think they said it was like a 50% decrease in deterrent. And so that would help. They're also looking at, but it's not one of the governor's bills, but looking at, actually it is the governor's bill to do on some juveniles doing the DNA testing if it's violent crimes. The other thing is as far as gun safety, I actually passed a bill this year, was funded, that everybody in Tennessee can take a gun safety class free. And because I felt like that was important to do. And so there are some things in the bill as far as safe storage and the governor's package of safe storage. But I think the DNA, the DNA fingerprinting is going to be a big deal. And I think there's another one, but I'm kind of brain dead today. Sorry.
No problem. We've got to take another quick break on Inside Tennessee. Back with more of our conversation about the upcoming special session on public safety. As Dr. Briggs and Senator Massey said, it should last about a week. We're back with more of that conversation after this.